A poltergeist is a type of ghost that is known for its ability to cause physical disturbances in any place that it resides. These kinds of spirits are aggressive, known for their tendency to move and throw objects, levitate things, and sometimes even attack people with bites, scratches, and tackles. Here we look at 5 cases of poltergeist hauntings that transitioned from run-of-the-mill ghost stories to horror stories of demonic proportions. Hit those lights, sit back, and enjoy. The South Shields Poltergeist. A couple we'll call Mark and Mariana to protect their identities lived with their young son Robert in a coastal town in northeast England called South Shields. Their lives were calm and quiet until in the winter of 2005 they began to experience a slowly escalating series of events that seemed like typical poltergeist mischief. Slamming doors, footsteps, sudden temperature drops, and other strange movements and noises. However, this haunting would soon take a creepier turn, as the supposed poltergeist seemed to have a fixation on the family's young child, Robert's toys. The poltergeist frequently used the boy's toys as a means of assaulting Mariana, as they were flung at her. One night, not long after the first strange assault, she and her husband sat up together in bed, trying to figure out what was happening to them, when they were beset by nearly every toy in the house flying into their faces. When the couple pulled the covers over themselves in an effort to shield them, they claimed that something tried desperately to tear the cover away, before Mark cried out in pain. After the event, deep scratches appeared on Mark's back, although these marks would vanish by the next morning. This entity had some strange attachment to Robert's toys, even using his Etch-a-Sketch to leave the family threatening messages, and seemingly writing in some mysterious foreign language. Eventually the family called for help, and paranormal investigators entered the home, only to find the activity escalating. The entity now actively attacked the family and the investigators, leaving scratches and bruises on their bodies, damaging belongings, throwing furniture at them, and using Robert's toys once again as a means to further intimidate them. Then, as suddenly as the poltergeist's activity began, it ceased. No more strange phenomena took place in the house, and weirdly, everything went back to normal. Thornton Heath Poltergeist. On a summer night in the 1970s, a family in Thornton Heath, England, were awoken by their family radio turning on randomly and tuning into a strange foreign language station. This electrical anomaly, while seeming like a minor event, was only the catalyst to a series of strange and frightening occurrences. Nothing else unusual occurred until Christmas of that year, when the Christmas tree was violently shaken, and a variety of ornaments were flung around the house. From then on, things would only escalate as the family reported loud knocks on doors, randomly opening and closing cabinets, and the flickering of lights in the house, and finally, physical assaults on the members of the household. The new year brought a whole new sort of paranormal activity, beginning with the family consistently hearing footsteps walking through the upstairs bedroom. Several days later, their young son was awoken from sleep by a tall man in old-fashioned clothes, who hovered above the boy's bed. It was then that the family knew they had to do something. A medium visited their home, and after a séance, learned that the name of the spirit haunting the house was Chatterton, which local public records confirmed was once a farmer who lived on the property. The medium concluded that this spirit believed that the family was trespassing on his land. The family tried to keep the spirit at bay for 4 more years, although blessings from local priests seemed to do very little to deter the angry ghost. Eventually they gave in and moved away, apparently taking the haunting with them, as there have been no further reports of hauntings occurring in that house since. The Perron family. Anyone who is a fan of the paranormal and of horror is likely familiar with the movie The Conjuring. The Conjuring is a dramatised account of the haunting experienced by the Perron family in the early 1970s in Harrisville, Rhode Island. The haunting began almost immediately after the family moved into their recently bought country estate. Though at first it was relatively harmless, with the usual reported footsteps and moving items. The poltergeist quickly grew hostile, however, with the smell of rotting flesh permeating the house, and disembodied cries ringing out in the silence of the night. In time, the Perron family learned of a woman who lived in the house long before them, named Bathsheba Sherman, who was involved in a scandal in the late 1800s. Locals claimed that her recently deceased infant was in fact sacrificed by the woman to Satan in return for witch-like powers and eternal beauty. Rumours of a sadistic witch living in the house that was now occupied by the Perrons lasted well after Bathsheba's death, and it is believed that the woman cursed the house and all who occupied it after she died. After months of physical abuse and emotional exhaustion, the Perron family called for help, which arrived in the form of Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens quickly determined that the house was under the influence of a powerful and dark spirit, but were unable to conduct a traditional exorcism due to the Perrons' secular outlook on life. Instead, they attempted a séance in order to communicate with the dead witch and perhaps learn what could be done to satisfy her. Unfortunately, it didn't work, only further enraging the entity, causing it to intensify its abuse of the family. The Warrens left, having failed to stop the demonic infestation, something Lorraine Warren regrets to this day. The Perrons attempted to stick it out, but eventually they could no longer handle the strange happenings in their home and they moved away, leaving the witch behind. The Smurls Poltergeist. Only one thing is worse than an unwelcome guest, one who refuses to leave. Jack and Janet Smurl and their two daughters, Dawn and Heather, lived in a quiet Pennsylvania suburb, leading a very normal life, until the beginning of 1974, when some strange things started to happen. At first it was odd and not scary. Strange stains would appear on their new carpets, the family television seemingly burst into flames, and the pipes of the house would leak no matter how many times Jack resoldered them. By 1977, the Smurls realised that these strange happenings were no longer looking like a coincidence. Too many things were going wrong at once, and in ways that seemed far away from natural. Footsteps would be continuously heard throughout the house, drawers would open and close randomly, radios would blare static and garbled music despite being unplugged, strange and rotten smells would float through the house, and empty rocking chairs would mysteriously rock as if someone was sitting in them. By 1985, the experiences went from annoying and creepy to totally terrifying. The house became icy cold, and a faceless, black humanoid figure began to haunt the Smurls day to day, pulling hair, levitating, and throwing members of the family. The next year, the famous demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren came to investigate the house, and tried many times to provoke and remove the spirit with little success. Their arrival only caused an escalation in the events, with Jack claiming to have been sexually assaulted by the entity, and Ed Warren being choked by an unseen force and then coming down with flu-like symptoms. With help from the Catholic Church, the Warrens identified that at least 4 hostile spirits plagued the house, and multiple exorcisms were attempted. By 1986, after a 3-month pause in activity, Jack once again saw the ominous black form, and the disembodied banging and putrid smells returned. Frustrated and terrified, the Smurl family gave up on trying to reclaim their home, and moved away to a new town. The Pontefract Poltergeist. When the Pritchard family moved into a house in West Yorks, UK, with son Philip and daughter Diane in 1966, they did not expect to become embroiled in one of the most famous and strange poltergeist hauntings in history. Almost immediately after they moved in, the unusual slew of ghostly happenings began in their home. Random stains appeared, lights turned off and on, furniture moved, hanging pictures were slashed, foul smells wafted through the house, and heavy breathing sounds intimidated and frightened the whole family. Mother and father Joe and Dean then encountered the entity that caused these strange happenings, a moving shadow cloaked in what they said resembled a monk's robes, leading to the entity to be called the Black Monk of Pontefract. Though Jean was regularly thrown from her bed, and even on one occasion woke up to being choked, only to later notice bruises on her throat, the family decided to stay in the house, determined to try and coexist with this increasingly malevolent entity. The family attempted an exorcism, but the Black Monk of Pontefract was undisturbed by this, and allegedly responded to the family's sprinkling of holy water by drawing upside-down crosses on their walls. Eventually, the Pritchards could no longer take this abuse by the poltergeist and sold the home. After the property exchanged hands a few times, an advertiser and film producer, Bill Bungay, purchased the house and turned it into a macabre tourist destination, where one can pay to stay the night in the haunted house. Reports of the Black Monk's creepy activities have continued to this day, with investigators and ghost hunters alike reporting that strange occurrences at the house still continue, and the Black Monk still holds animosity towards all living beings that enter his house. So that's 5 terrifying cases of poltergeist activity. I hope you're enjoying these creepy October videos. And why not pick up an I Believe Ghost beanie over at our store to express your beliefs in the paranormal. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.